About that.
Here we are. Welcome back. This is We Are Not Experts, an airplane building podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Tim.
And we are not experts. This is technically episode 10. And
Technically.
yeah.
And I am
so
having...
we've hit the double digits. I
There
would
we
say
go.
successfully. However, we are still recording this, so we don't know for sure if this is going to work out. But we appear to be recording episode 10 of what I'm sure will be more than 10 episodes of We Are Not Experts, an airplane building podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you're one of the bajillions who've been following us from the very start, welcome. Thanks for coming back. We are a couple of guys who are building airplanes in our garages. Specifically, we're each building Van's RV-8 aircraft projects. And we are at nearly the same place, although Tim has taken a lead in the construction, and his fuselage will be arriving soon. So if you didn't know, that kind of tells you that we're both more or less in some stage of building the wings. Although, like I said, Tim's wings are highly advanced pieces of art. Tim, how the hell are you?
I'm good. I'm doing really good. I don't know about highly advanced pieces of art. They're highly advanced pieces of something right now.
Yeah.
Art's a strong word.
I mean, I would imagine among the tens of thousands of Van's aircraft that have been built, there are probably very few that could say that at this point in construction, like before getting into the fuselage, that their wings are finished to this degree, as for what yours are.
Probably. That's out of lack of other things to do. But I do keep inventing new things to do. Actively working on stuff right now. So
so there have been some interesting develops in the world of experimental aviation that have prompted some of your more recent changes to the wings. We'll talk about that. We had a fun field trip yesterday. That's certainly worth talking about. Anything else before we get into that stuff in the world of experimental aviation home building that got your attention that you wanted to talk about?
No, really nothing standing out right now. Excited to get the fuselage whenever it does get here, hopefully the beginning of June. But no, nothing new has really come out.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a little update on my build because I've been doing so little building really the past couple of months as I've been working on earning the money to build an airplane. But I did finally get back into the shop for a little bit. Just to recap, I had a lot of little to-dos remaining on the rear spar of both of my wings, some spots where rivets had to be drilled out and the holes got wallowed out, so they needed to be upsized and whatnot. I had to rebuild the inboard aileron bracket on the right wing. We talked before about how I had incorrectly ordered the wrong parts. I ordered the parts for the left aileron bracket. That was an expensive mistake. So that's all done. I got that that right aileron bracket rebuilt and attached to the wing successfully. I had a little apprehension in doing that. You know, we always hope, I think, people like you and me, people who are building airplanes and are amateurs, always hope that there's a way that you can find a way to use your squeezer to do as many of the rivets as possible. And this, especially in a situation like this, where you're working through this bracket, you're working through some thick pieces of aluminum angle on the aft side where the bracket attaches to the rear spar, and then as a bonus, additional thick pieces of aluminum angle that are stacked on top of each other inboard portion or the forward portion of that rear spar because of a service bulletin that required everybody to reinforce that area. So you end up trying to set really, really long rivets, which for whatever reason, I mean, technically speaking, the exposed portion of the shank before it's squeezed or driven is basically always the same. They're not extra long, but they kind of want to tip over sometimes. And when you're working in tight quarters like that, it's really easy to tip them over, which is why you end up drilling them out, wallowing out the holes, have to reorder the parts and remake the thing. Okay, one of the reasons. In this particular instance, I had to remove it because I installed it out of sequence and created a problem for myself. That being said, there are only 2 or 3 of them that you can get in there with the squeezer. And I was like, squeezer is always the safest bet. You have the most control. And then having not done any building for a while, getting straight into bucking really long 1/8-inch rivets, universal head rivets with a double offset rivet set was like, those are like stacked up. Those are things where it's like, okay, when you got a lot of practice, you can kind of do those with confidence. But if you haven't picked up a rivet gun and done any of that kind of riveting in like 3, 4, maybe 5 months, and you're doing it in a tight spot,
yeah, you're asking for trouble.
yeah. And luckily it worked.
That's good.
I didn't screw them up. And I kind of wondered why why I didn't screw them up. But two things I think. One is just now, even with long breaks in the construction, I know more than I did before. So my technique, even if it's not practice, is still better than it was in the beginning when I started doing that kind of riveting. And the second thing is, and this took probably longer than it should have to learn, was how to properly adjust the settings on my rivet gun and dial it in more quickly. Made a huge difference. I'm more confident in my ability to find the right intensity for the rivet gun when I'm switching between rivet sizes. So happily, that was a success. It's really kind of a small win in terms of like the overall many years of construction that the airplane will take. But coming back into it and driving rivets after a long gap like that without creating more problems, that was good. The other thing that I worked on was the aileron push tubes. I had to rebuild one of them because the rivets just didn't set properly. And I'm not 100% certain about how this turned out. It really kind of fell in a middle ground. I'm using CherryMax rivets to set these threaded rod ends into the end of these tubes. And I did one and it turned out perfectly. I did a second one and it was very obvious that those rivets didn't sit correctly, probably because the holes that they were being inserted into were just slightly oversized and that little extra wiggle room wouldn't allow them to set properly. So now that I've rebuilt it and went in there again with fresh material, precise holes, it somehow fell in between. It fell in between the perfectly set rivets and the ones that were clearly bad. And these ones are kind of in the middle. You saw them. We talked about it a little bit. I'm probably going to take that push tube. I'm definitely going to take that push tube and see if Joe's at the hangar and have him take a look at it and also talk about with him. And you talked about it a little bit, but with him, what are the actual forces that are acting on that assembly, and so what are the risks? And so would that even pose a problem? I don't know. I mean, you and I both know that as much force was required to press those rod ends into place, you could probably fly that plane forever.
Oh yeah, without
And
it ever moving, without anything in it.
Yeah, Yeah.
Here's a thought. If they're not good, would it be feasible to find a welder to grind the end and just put a TIG
plug
weld
weld.
on the end? Yeah, or plug weld. Yeah, grind out the rivets, plug
Yeah.
weld it, and then maybe put a bead around the end rather than having to reorder the parts a
I
third time.
I
I know you were talking
originally
about welding the first time.
I was, and then I went and I kind of solicited some opinions, and uh and I had the parts in hand. And now I went to a shop, like a mechanic shop, and I know that they do a lot of fab work in there, and talked to them about it. And so from their perspective, it was like, boy, that's pretty thin material. It would be pretty easy to blast through that stuff. The tube is not that thick. Certainly there are people who are capable of doing it. It's even mentioned in the plans as welding is an option. And then
Yeah.
I went to Conroe Welding Supply and talked to the guys behind the counter back there. And one guy's just a sales guy, another guy's a welder. And the welder, his thought was brazing it would be the best way to go about it, which is not really something that I know anything about. So nobody said, "Oh yeah, for sure." But I'm sure, especially in Houston, and especially like in the part of Houston where we live, where there's so much industry related to the oil fields and stuff like that. I mean, you
Yeah,
could
there's
swing
somebody who
a
can do it.
stick and find somebody who's like a brilliant, like probably, you know, very clean TIG welder that could work with that kind of material. So I know I could have somebody do it. I certainly don't have the skill to do it. I would just be ordering more parts that have been destroyed in a different way than I normally.
And it'd probably be the same cost when you come down to it, paying somebody to weld it versus paying Vans for another set of push
Oh
tube
yeah,
parts.
for sure. Yeah, because it might even be cheaper. I'd pay somebody to weld it, or I would try to weld it myself, destroy it, reorder new parts.
Yeah.
I'd probably take 3 cracks at it before I decided to pay somebody else to do it.
Well, they look good to me, but I don't know anything about CherryMax rivets. I mean, I could see a difference that you were talking about, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, based on what's acting on that thing in flight, it's pulling out, not against the grip strength of the rivet. So unless the rivet can work itself out somehow, which I don't see that being possible, I don't think there's a problem, but I'm no expert. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from what you and I know about that thing, just in the practical experience of putting them together, even if those rivets could find a way to get out, which I can't imagine they could, but even if they could, you're an amazing person if you could actually remove that rod end from that was driven in there with a 4-pound sledge over a
with
period of 30
without
minutes.
destroying anything else in the process, yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
not
one of
going to
those
happen.
things like if that thing were to come apart, that's not your biggest problem. That means that an aileron was already ripped off the wing, and
I was going to say an aileron has bent or departed the aircraft before that thing's going to let go.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
So,
That thing staying together is not going to save you at that point.
but I mean, it doesn't stop us from second guessing our work and changing what we thought was good because things happen and it makes you question things. So,
Yeah, and that I think naturally leads into talking about your most recent modification to your wings and why.
yeah. So, by now, I'm sure most of at least our viewers have heard of the Rob Holland accident, aerobatic pilot flying into Langley Air Force Base for the air show and crashed when he was on short final. Very accomplished aviator. I mean, if anybody could fly out of any situation, he would definitely be one of the ones that could possibly do it. Early reports came out saying that a modification that was done to his elevator, where he had a screw plug, I guess, installed so he could change the counterbalance weights easily between routines. They think that came out or loose and jammed the elevator when he was on final, which, yeah, it doesn't really matter how good you are. If the elevator is jammed, especially in a position other than straight and level, there's not much he can do about it. Um, so that got me thinking. I made the wingtip mod and I made those pin retainers. And the only thing that holds the pin retainer in is a screw. There's no way to safety wire that screw or lock that screw in place. And because of how snug the screw fits inside of the retainer block, if the screw did back out, the entire retainer block would come out with it before I would ever see the screw coming out. So it got me thinking, I could be in a similar situation with my ailerons, because if that comes out, it would and could jam one of my ailerons if I had enough deflection. So that led me to calling you and having the same conversation with you. And you had a great idea, because I was trying to think of different ways to possibly put a piece of safety wire across that thing, or some way to positively retain that block. And um, none of it was really good. And then you threw out the idea of like a pocket, basically, that the block could slide back into. So it was physically constrained and couldn't come out, even being loose. It can't come out. So I took one of the wingtips, and tried the idea out, made a little makeshift rib. And part of the premise was seeing if there was enough flex in the rods to be able to slide a block further onto the rods, over a pocket, and then back down and into a pocket. And that was the question, that we weren't sure if it was going to work. Well, it turns out it will. There is enough flex in those rods to be able to do that, actually somewhat easily. So as of this recording, I have completed one wingtip. The other wingtip is mostly done. The little fake rib retainer thing is done for it. I've made new blocks, adjusted the pin lengths, and glassed over the entire outside of it, so it is just one smooth plug. And now what happens is, and I'll have a whole video coming out on this in the next few days, you take the pin retainer block, you slide it up onto the pins, over the pocket, and then all the way back down and into the pocket. And then I think the simplest method to make sure it can't wiggle its way forward, which just the sheer tension of the rods being splayed out will keep that from happening, is just to take a simple piece of safety wire, wrap it around both the rods, give it a few twists, and that tension on the safety wire on the rods should keep the block from ever being able to move up the rods.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. It
the
can't,
safety wire would have
it
to work
wouldn't be
its
able
way.
to move forward, just because to go forward, it would have, the wire would have to be longer, meaning
Yep. You would
the
have to
two rods are
stretch.
moving away from each other. Right. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So, just for clarity for the people who are listening and trying to picture in their head what's going on, specifically in the Rob Holland situation, the elevators, on the back of the airplane, the sort of horizontal tail feathers that move up and down to control the pitch of the aircraft. There's a portion of them on the very outboard portion that it extends a little bit forward and has a counterweight in it, because you need something in there to help balance or counteract the aerodynamic forces that are working against it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be strong enough to pull. And so there's where that extended portion moves up and down, it has a face that brushes very nearly. There's a little bit of clearance, but it's very close to the horizontal stabilizer. So if there was something in that portion that was sticking out, protruding a little bit, it could interfere, it could snag on the horizontal stabilizer and get jammed in a position, either deflected up or deflected down. And so what they had done, it's for that counterweight, because of the type of flying that he does. And I think it's important to note, we're a airplane building podcast. This wasn't a home built aircraft. This is an aircraft that can be purchased either as factory built, or it could be kit built. This one was factory built, but then later they, and this is what I gathered from Blanco Lirio video on the thing. They had received an FAA special authorization, or whatever you want to call it, that allowed them to make this modification to the aircraft.
Right.
So it's sort of a hybrid in the world of certified aircraft that got a little experimental grace, let's say. And the way that they did it is they basically created a plug, like an aluminum plug that could screw out, like a really fat screw that could screw out, and then he could go in and change the weight that was in that counterweight to suit whatever type of routine that he was flying, to be able to manage the feel of the aircraft. if you watch Juan Brown's video on this, this has not been determined to be the cause of the accident, but it will be. This was found on one of the elevators to be completely absent, missing from the aircraft. They did locate it, and there's evidence on the horizontal stabilizer of where the snag was occurring, and even witnesses on the ground talking about that this weird porpoising action, and what it looks like is it was jammed, and he made a big pull to try to break it free, and whatever the resulting was, obviously it wasn't recoverable at that altitude. But it was interesting to look at the way that this thing was done, because it wasn't, there's no evidence on the threads within the plug or the plug itself that there was any sort of thread locker used. There wasn't any sort of safety wire set up it didn't seem that there was anything really done to positively retain this thing to keep it from backing out. I haven't heard anything yet about, how long ago this modification was made, how long he'd been flying with it that way. But it does seem on the surface to be a really silly bit of engineering so I imagine there's more to the story, that there was some consideration taken for how that thing was going to be retained to prevent that from happening, that we just don't know about yet. But whatever it was, it didn't work, and got Tim thinking not about the elevators on his airplane, but about the ailerons on his airplane, because similarly, the wingtips, the fiberglass wingtips that Tim has spent most of his life building for his airplane, the trailing edge of the wingtip is completely in line with the trailing edge of the elevators. The elevators deflect up and down,
Ailerons.
which are ailerons. What I said, elevators, yeah, ailerons. They deflect up and down to control the roll of the aircraft, and so same thing as what we were describing before. The gap between the area where the wingtip and the aileron would meet is a very narrow gap, but there needs to be a gap there because the aileron goes up and down. So if something got in there, it could potentially jam the aileron in a deflected position and would give the pilot no ability to control roll, and you'd be flying like a corkscrew until that thing either came out or you found your way to the ground. And so Tim made a modification to his wingtips in the way that he mounted them. Instead of riveting, or screwed on, right, nut plates and
Screws or
screws.
rivets. Those are the two popular methods. Yeah.
So he did a really nice install of a modification that uses hinges and pins to put it on. It mounts very cleanly, and it allows the wingtip to come on and off relatively easily. And in the very trailing edge of that wingtip, Tim created a little block that would retain those pins so they would be held in place. And that block is mounted to the wingtip, and it has a screw that holds it. And so he's picturing the idea that screw could come loose, and then that block could do something similar to the way that plug did. So he worked out a way to retain that block so that could not happen. That's what all that discussion was. And absolute tragedy what happened to Rob Holland. But it certainly did, and I'm sure not only with you and I, but with a lot of people, had them think about the way that they're building things, and start having some thoughts about engineering solutions to prevent something similar from happening. And so that, at least, I think, is a good part of the fallout of that happening. Just stirring creative thoughts, and then that's, I guess, one of the advantages of being a part of experimental aviation and building your own airplane is you don't have to wait who knows how long until a service bulletin comes out to say, hey, you guys need to fix something. You can start working on the fixes right now.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously prompted me to think. I've spent my entire professional aviator career in the Air Force, doing case study after case study of accidents every quarter. So I can't not watch them on YouTube and stay, in tune with them. And I'm always trying to learn from, the tragedies that happen so that hopefully we don't make the same mistakes, or at least we get better from it. And this one definitely prompted me to go take a hard look at something I had done that could do the same thing. Now, there are other people flying with the same setup. I didn't create that method. I copied, what others had done. So it's clearly been safe and it hasn't caused a problem for anybody else. But I mean, it could. So I think the system that you thought about and then I went out there and implemented, I think is a much better idea, because it would be so astronomically impossible now, I think, for that block to come out on its own, even though it's not really being retained by a screw or anything else anymore. It's just simply slid back in there. But
yeah,
it's much, much safer, I think, than what it was before.
yeah.
And it's
And I
easy to
think
check.
that goes back to when we were talking about the aileron push tube thing, and we second guess ourselves. If nothing else, that thing is not going to be something that you're thinking about when you're flying the airplane. Like
Right.
that's not going to be like we've talked about before, and even yesterday, about when we first started building our airplanes. If we look at 1,000 holes in the empennage and we go, dang it, did I actually deburr every hole? Because if I didn't, if I forgot to deburr one hole, in-flight breakup, guaranteed.
That's right. It's going to crack and split the wing in half, and
Exactly.
that's the end of it. I can see the wing off flight.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a builder, I'm going to be flying this thing. Maybe I'll be flying my family in it if anybody would have ever crawl in it with me. But yeah, you tend to think about those things. But I think this is an example of where overthinking it a little bit is probably the right amount of thinking about it.
Yep. I have time on my hands, so
yeah, you do.
And it really wasn't a big deal to change it. I've gotten so good at the fiberglass now, it's not even funny. I won't say I'm good at it, but I'm comfortable with it. It's not a big deal to just go, I'll just mix up some resin and flux and make a little aluminum rib, put this in here, slap this over it. And yeah, now you can't even tell it was there. It just looks like that part that I did before is just extended, but there's a hollow part to it and the block slides down into it.
Yeah.
Most of the way. It doesn't slide all the way in. It slides most of the way in, and then I made a hole in it so I could grab it with a tool and pull it back out.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm glad there was the possibility that you could have thought about that after it was already stuck down in
After
there.
it was stuck in there. That didn't happen. It could have, but it didn't. I actually thought about it ahead of time. I'm like, I can't make this go completely flush in there. It has to stick out some. The majority is in there so that no matter what, it can't tip out or do anything silly.
So just on the forward end, like on one face of it, you've got a little hole that you can get it with a pick or something.
I can grab it with a pick or an Allen wrench or something like that, and just anything and just grab it and pull it out. So good. And it seems to work. And like I said, the last measure when it gets put on semi-permanently in between annuals will be a piece of safety wire probably wrapped around the two rods themselves to squeeze them down against the block. And then that should keep anything from moving. And it'll be real easy to check on a pre-flight. When I go check ailerons, is the block back in where it goes? Yes. Is the safety wire in place still? Yes. I thought about it. I could even probably paint or coat the back half of the block like red. So if I don't see it, I know it's fully seated. If I see red, I know that it's somehow come unseated.
Yeah.
That was that. The rest of it is, and those videos are all out. The fairings are all as done as they can be, complete with camera power and spots to mount cameras and all kinds of other fancy stuff to make my airplane way more than it probably should, but it'll look cool doing it. So,
hey, about that stuff, about the camera power stuff, I think that the big developments around that have occurred since our last recording.
It has. It's been a busy week, an unexpected busy week.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're doing with the camera power? Well, like how you got to that point and what you're doing with it now.
So, I added camera power. I think we talked about me doing it in the last podcast.
Yeah, because we were talking about, when we talked about specifically, I think we were talking about on the vertical stabilizer.
Yeah. So the Insta-line of cameras, you can program them to start recording when you turn power onto them through a power cord. And after talking with you about it, I decided that, that really would be a good thing to just have a switch in the cockpit. You can flip it, turn on these outlets out on the extremities of the plane where the cameras are mounted, and they just start recording. You don't have to worry about batteries. You don't have to worry about syncing anything. They just come on, they record, you turn them off, they stop recording. So I thought it would be easy enough to go to in-flight camera mounts or rock flicks or flight flicks or whatever they are, and a few others. Somebody has to have kits out there for supplying power to these things, but they don't. Nobody does. I looked and I looked, couldn't find anything that was standard for it. What looks like most people do with experimentals is they buy a automotive style USB plug that wires to 12 volts, and then they got to find some place to put that inside the wing, and then you run a cable from it to a bulkhead connector and then hook stuff up to that. And that just seemed like there had to be a better option. And I found some parts that I think mounted better, should be better at dissipating heat. So what I found was a power supply, converts 12 volts to 5 volts. Then I hooked up my own USB-C cable to it, wired that in, put a nice sheathing on it, hooked that up to a bulkhead connector, and then that goes through both my empennage fairing, and I've got one out in the left wingtip now. And all of that came out in a video, and I think one of the viewers mentioned that because I threw out the idea of possibly selling these as a kit because nobody was selling them. Somebody mentioned that he would buy them if they were a kit. If not, they were asking if I could provide a list of parts for some of the other stuff I used. And it got me thinking. I was like, yeah, why not? I've sold some of the other 3D printed stuff to a few viewers that have asked. And I decided I would just put this together as a kit. The wife kind of prompted me along. She's got a soap business, so she helped me with the website. And in the span of a week, I've got a business website set up. I've got products listed on there. As of last night, I sold the only 2 camera power kits that I've made. And I've got a whole bunch of those conduit clips on there and some stuff like that. I'm getting parts to make more of the power kits, see if we sell some more. So yeah, I guess I have a small business now that has sold something at least. Oh, and I made the aerodynamic fairing to go around the weatherproof bulkhead connector. So that comes with it as well. So I've taught myself CAD in the last week too, so that I can design those things and print them. And I don't know if you see with the 3D printers, like printing away in the background. Actually, I think it's done.
Yeah.
Is
I think
trying to
it's
print more
awesome, man.
fairings as we speak.
You're selling experimental parts for experimental airplanes. It's very much in the
Exactly.
spirit of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, nobody else had it, so I was like, why not? We'll see if it goes anywhere. I may even expand. I mean, there's lots of people that use action cameras to record lots of different things, not just aviators. So
Yeah.
I'll throw some stuff up in some other places too, and see if I can't at least augment some of the parts I have to buy for this airplane.
Yeah. It's funny. After in a minute here, we'll talk about what we did yesterday. But when I got home yesterday, sometime in the evening, checked to see if there's anything new on YouTube that I wanted to look at, and a video popped up in my feed from a builder who I've never heard of before, who's got a mostly complete Sling TSI in his hangar, and his video was about his camera mount setup for his Insta 360 and the whole power supply thing. So all the ever listening ears and the algorithm are hard at work making sure that we're always reminded about what we talked about 10 minutes ago someplace else.
That's right. I'm sure Facebook will have all kinds of ads for things I didn't even know existed here shortly about stuff we talked about. So
Yeah.
the phone is listening.
Yep. Well, otherwise I wouldn't even know what to buy,
There you go. So yeah, the business is up and running. I've got all of my stuff for Oshkosh. I'm definitely going there and wait on a fuselage.
Oh yeah. I don't think even the last time we talked, I think that we joked about swag. But you are now a purveyor of swag for
I,
Oshkosh.
I have swag en route that I'm going to wear at Oshkosh. I've got a hat coming, some shirts. I'll have a sign out in front of my tent with a QR code for the channel. Nothing for the business because I didn't have it or even think about it when I did any of that. So it's all just for YouTube.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of koozies. There might be some stickers.
Speaking of your tent, you showed
Yeah.
me pictures of that thing, and I immediately got like vibes from the movie The Martian and the living pods.
Yeah.
That's a legit
I
setup. My only question was, will you have to pay for a second campsite to house your entire tent?
possibly. I went very Air Force with my tent because we don't sleep in tents. So if I got to sleep in a tent, it's gonna be an epic tent with a queen size bed and room service. So
I fully expect that you will do like Bedouin style and throw down some big Persian carpets and really make it
yeah,
super
I
luxe.
might I might have a rug for the tent.
That's a cool setup. That's a cool setup. I stopped by Bill's hangar the other day, just driving through, and he was setting up a tent out there that was orders of magnitude smaller than yours because he's about to head up to Alaska in his Super Cub with another guy, also flying a Super Cub, and he got a new tent for that trip. And when I went by his hangar, he was just outside timing himself to see how long it took him to set it up. He said his buddy was trying to talk him into getting those ones that you just sort of pop them up, and like they just pop up.
That's kind of what this one's like.
Yeah. Well, so yours looks huge though. Is yours is like pop up like that, but you can
Kind of.
still
You
stand up
you
full?
pop out all of the sides and
Yeah.
then it's up and good to go. It took me first time I set it up, it took me like 6 minutes, seven
Yeah.
minutes to set it up,
Yeah.
not counting the rain fly, but
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that looks like a pretty sweet setup to me. That's what I would. I mean, similarly, I would like. I'm not going on a backpacking trip. I'm trying to have a house that will fold out. Um,
that's what this is because it is huge when it's rolled up. Like
yeah.
I thought this would be good for later on. There's no way in hell this thing's ever going to fit inside of the airplane.
Oh,
It is way too big. Um, they make a half size version. Maybe that would fit in the plane later on, but this one, no, this is just going to be for driving up to Oshkosh.
yeah.
There's no way, unless I make some sort of fancy belly pod that this thing fits in that's like 6 feet long or something. Who knows?
Yeah. How? I mean, you can create a like an extended cargo area from the back seat.
Yeah, but this is really extended. I wish I had it in here right now and show you the bag. But for those that are curious that are listening and not watching this, it is a Gazelle T4 Plus or T4 hub, T4 Plus hub. Basically, it's a T4, which is a square one, and then the hub is it's got a screened-in porch section that's the same size attached to it
Why
that you
wouldn't
can
it?
use as another room.
Why
Well, I
wouldn't it?
mainly got it because one of my sons may go up there with me or may visit while I'm there. So if they drop in on me, figure I'd
So
have a
you told
spot
him
to
he has to
stick them.
sleep on the porch.
Yeah, you guys sleep in the porch.
I want to go. I'm still not at the point where I can commit to going, and I have a couple of I have a couple of trips I need to make to California in the next few weeks because I've got two daughters graduating, and of course, one's graduating college, the other one's graduating high school. They're in different cities in different weeks, so it can't be a single trip.
Well, I got a work trip, a cruise, another work trip. So I'm going to Eglin in Florida day after tomorrow. Then I come home, I go on a cruise, and then after the cruise, the next work trip is to Sioux Falls, and that'll be fun. And then after Sioux Falls, that's it. Nothing until Oshkosh. So
Well, that's going to be awesome. I hope I get to find some way to swing that. I got to say, unrelated to, mostly unrelated to the airplane stuff, but kind of because it's how I pay for an airplane. Um, my efforts to grow my company and completely replace, the movie life have been going pretty well. So on the
Good.
current trajectory, I feel pretty good about how things are going. So only time will tell if it accelerates quickly enough that I can break away for Osh. But either way, I feel good about it and getting back into more serious airplane building. So yesterday, you and I took a little field trip to Chennault Airfield.
We did. That was cool.
Yeah. So for the unfamiliar, which is probably most of you, there was a flight school on the field at Conroe Airport, Chennault Aviation Academy, named after the famous General Chennault. General, I think so.
General. Yeah, he was General.
General Claire Chennault, who was famous probably mostly for being the director of the Flying Tigers, the American volunteer group in China during the Boxer Rebellion. And it's named after that because his daughter or granddaughter are involved in that flight school, and they ended up very hastily needing to leave Conroe Airport because they lost their lease in the facility. But they wanted to remain local to Conroe because that's sort of their appeal. They're not like a national chain of flight schools like American Flyers which is one of the flight schools that moved onto the field recently. So they found a field within Conroe that had formerly been like an airstrip for ag work, that had not been used in probably 35 or 40 years. And then in a span of 9 months, they were able to um, acquire the property, get all the permitting done, get all the approvals necessary to build an airport out there and get that thing built and get their school moved and up and running. And when that happened, part of their plan was, once we're established and running, then we'll get into the permitting process to build a hangar park. And hangar space is always hard to come by. So for people like us who are thinking a couple years down the road, that was a pretty attractive thing. So we went to go check it out and we learned some interesting stuff. But I really wanted to take you there because we have talked about Cleveland Airport, which is near you, and it always comes up how forested that area is and how important that would be to people whose engines stop running suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, anybody doing a test flight, especially for the first time, may or may not appreciate having trees as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
Cleveland Airport is definitely surrounded by trees. There are some openings around it.
Yeah.
This one still surrounded by trees. There are some suitable roads, I think, that we discussed that might make suitable alternative landing sites if one's engine should fail at an embarrassingly low altitude. So, and I mean, it's a nice field. I like what they're doing with it, and I'm sure the waiting list is probably going to be quicker. I mean, I'm number 98 on the list in Cleveland. They haven't even built these hangars yet, and I'll bet you I get offered a hangar there before Cleveland ever offers me one.
Yeah. So what we learned yesterday is that they did, in fact, get their permits approved to start building hangars. Right now, they're building a really large hangar, which basically is identical to the one they already have in place, and that will be partially for use for the school and then partially for the use for any early tenants to come in. When they first told us this plan to do it, there was basically going to be a hangar park of identical hangars, and now apparently they're going to start with 100 hangars, ultimately go to 400 hangars, and on the other side of the field, building houses. So there'll be an air park as part of it as well, and then some other larger facilities, presumably, for lease by maintenance facilities or maintenance companies or whatever. So there's going to be a lot going on there. But
And
I
a
am happy.
dormitory
Oh yeah, dormitory.
for the
They're
students.
for the students, yeah. And now
Uh,
they not only have the Chennault Aviation Academy, but they have the Chennault Aviation Maintenance Academy.
That's right, CAMA.
Yeah. So, which is very cool. So they've got a lot going on there. There are a few things I like about it. I mean, the field, it's a coin flip, which is closer to me, at least on the road between Conroe and Chennault Field. Geographically, it's closer, but it's a little, it's not quick. I mean, in relative terms, it's not 5 minutes away. It's 20 minutes or something like that, which is, really close. That's cool. But I do like the idea.
It's 5 minutes if you build a helicopter.
That's right. When I build my Mosquito,
There you go.
yeah, let me just be dropping in, park on the roof, which is something we need to talk to him about. Is like, what are we doing for roofs here? Can I put a big bullseye on the roof?
Can I put a helipad up on the roof?
Exactly. But yeah, I'm excited that there's going to be some like a variety of offerings for different hanger sizes, and then also, presuming this all works out, Tim and I both filled out letters of intent, which is a non-binding piece of paper that says, I am very interested in this. It helps them sort of bundle these things together so they can go to the bank and say, look at this. You guys got to give us money so we can build these things. So they're going to get cracking on those pretty soon. But the last thing that I want to say about it is it would be neat to be able to be a part of that at the outset, like sort of a founding member, if you will, of the culture of that airport. That would be cool to be like the OGs who built airplanes.
The OGs in the neighborhood. Yeah, that's all right.
Exactly. Right.
Get the hangars that actually face the flight line so you can sit in your hangar and watch what's going on instead of being 5 rows back because you come in years later.
Yeah, very important point. And that's interesting because I'm anxious to see what the design plan is, like what hangars will be facing the runway. They're all going to be, 60 by 80 hangars that we can never afford, or they're going to be a variety of different, like, one section.
I think they said they're looking at 3 sizes. So
yeah,
I think they'll have T hangars and then they were going to have like 2 other sizes. So
yeah.
we'll have to see what they come up with.
So I'm curious to see if like, let's say the hangar row that faces the runway, if it represents all 3 sizes or if it's
the top tier.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The ones we can't afford.
Yeah. So no, I'm excited at the prospect of doing that. When you think about your build, at what stage do you think you're going to want to be in a hangar?
That's a good question because I obviously thought about it a lot more driving home yesterday. Because realistically, if they offer a hangar up whenever they're ready, I would be probably foolish to pass on it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that when they're ready would hopefully be at least 6 months to a year from now.
Right.
I don't imagine them having them up before then. And that might be an okay point. I don't know. For me, I would like to have as much done at home as I possibly can. And even if I had a hangar early, I don't know if I would move to it until that point because it is so much easier to go out here every few minutes when I have time during the day to go knock something out on the plane as opposed to if I have to drive 40 minutes to get to it. I don't know. I want to paint the plane myself. I don't think they're going to let me do that in a hangar at the airport. So that's something that would have to happen here in pieces. So I would have to have the plane probably at the stage of pretty close to final assembly, I think, or at least the major structures painted, the engine hung, and then it would be ready to go to a hangar. So if I'm being stupid optimistic, year and a half from now, maybe a year.
Yeah. I think, I mean, obviously I've thought about this as well. I agree with you. I think most people would agree with you that the stuff that you're going to put your hands on and work on, as long as you can keep that at your home, you're going to get more done, because it's not going to be a chore. Not just the time driving to and from, but the decision to go in and do something, doing 5 minutes of work. You wouldn't drive 40 minutes each way to do 5 minutes of work, but you can do 5 minutes of work at home, and that can accumulate. Getting a hangar early, like before you need it, for me wouldn't be a bad thing, because as I accumulate more projects in my garage, my shop gets tighter and tighter and smaller. So if nothing else, the stuff that I'm not going to be putting my hands on, to have a place to put that, even if I do most of the building, let's say that I'm building the fuselage, but moving the wings and the empennage to the hangar, for a period of
Right.
time, until it's time to fit the wings and come in. It wouldn't be that big of a deal to, it would be a half a day project or whatever, like to move them safely. So to be able to get stuff out of the way so that there's more room to work, I would appreciate that. And then I think that anytime I drive into town to get a gallon of milk or some eggs, I'll drive through the airport. Like, I just do it for inspiration. So to have an excuse to go there and hang
Right.
out a little bit. And like you said, hopefully facing the flight line and
Oh
critiquing
yeah.
student pilots
There you go.
bouncing their way down the
Judging
runway.
judging the landings.
Yeah.
I did actually look at my different paint scheme ideas this morning, and I thought about that same thing. Like, how much further along do I need to get the wings and the empennage before I could paint them, and then do the same thing? If I had a hangar early, they're painted, they're done, I can move them to the hangar and not worry about them again until I go put them on the plane. And it's like, honestly, I'm probably not as far away as I thought I was. Not for the wings. The empennage has to stick around until it can get mounted to the fuselage, because you've got all that drilling and stuff that has to be done to it. But I'm pretty sure the wings, I think they're almost at a point where I could do it pretty much any time I actually had the materials and the gumption to try it. So.
Yeah. So about that, a question coming from a guy who knows nothing about painting really anything, and that would be me.
Asking another guy who knows nothing about it.
Yeah. But so even if you are still kind of up in the air on your paint scheme, is the base coat the same no matter what scheme you're looking at? Like, is that still up for debate? And if it's not, if that's sort of settled, would it be a problem to go ahead and do the base, get the base coat done, and then later go in and do the details, or do those things really need to happen together?
It's a good question. I don't know, because I don't know, based on the scheme that I'm going with, I don't know what the base coat would be. If it makes sense to paint something one solid color and then add the various colors on top of it, or, is there enough of a difference that I should split it up because I'm just adding weight for no good reason to the wings by painting over it again? That's part of what
You've
I thought
never
about
been
this
shy
morning
about
too.
adding weight for no good reason.
No, this is true, but I really don't want this to be a 1,200 or 1,300 pound RV8 before my fat ass even gets in it. So
Yeah.
that's my only consolation right now, is all this extra weight. It's like, if I just lose a few pounds, I make up for that weight. If I lose a few, I'll make up for that weight. It's easy. I haven't done it yet, but it's easy.
Yeah. When it comes to the weight of this airplane, I know that that's something, well, with any airplane, right? People are weight, and then you look at the plans and they're like, so for example, what's the little part that we had to fabricate, where we're going to mount the backing plate for the tie down points on the wings, right? And there's that
Oh
backing
yeah.
plate, and then on the other side of that is the aileron bell crank, I think.
Yep.
And that plate that we fabbed has like an 1.5 inch diameter hole in the middle of it
To reduce weight.
to reduce weight. I didn't put that hole there.
Oh,
Like the aggravation of, it's a fairly thick piece of material, but the actual amount of weight, we're talking grams saved. And that comes up, seems to come up a lot in conversation or in the plans. Like, if you want to save weight, I'm building an airplane that, even though I'm not a skinny guy, I will be flying a plane that can very comfortably carry 2 full-grown adults very fast upside down, and I will be flying by myself, and the only thing that's gonna be in the back seat is snacks. A it and then and if it's like a trade-off, like how much fuel can you put in? This thing already, like economy cruise has an endurance of 6 hours. Why would I want to have enough fuel to fly for 6 hours
Right.
uninterrupted?
Yeah. Other things are going to interrupt you before that 6 hours of fuel
Yeah,
is used
for sure.
up.
For
You're going
sure.
to have to land. And I mean, there's an easy way to get around all of this. You just put a much more powerful engine up front and problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think
It'll be as
that,
heavy as you want.
yeah. And now if I was building a Cessna 150, I would be more concerned about weight. But as it is, the airplane that I'm building, I won't notice the difference between, um, 180 and 181 knots true. Won't notice it.
Yep. I'm curious what all it adds up to. I will be curious in the end to see what the ultimate weight is, to see if there was any real huge difference between all the stupid little things I've done, like all the fiberglassing things in and adding the cameras. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll make a difference. I don't think it's going to make an order of magnitude difference. I would be surprised if, all told, I even have maybe 5 pounds worth of extra stuff on this plane right now.
Yeah.
If that.
So I mean, I think it would be just interesting to, like, just a point of interest, ultimately. Hey, you built your airplane. We built the same airplane. How much is your weight? How much is mine? Because of choices that we made. Interesting point of comparison, but I don't think. I mean, the kind of things that we're doing that would affect the weight of the airplane will not affect the ability of the airplane to complete its mission to our satisfaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to mine. Not that I'll notice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Well, I think that brings us to a natural conclusion. Speaking of weight, I'm going to go try to lose some now.
Good luck with that. I need to get there.
I'll tell you what. My efforts to lose weight have been successful, but only the scale would tell you that. You can't tell it by looking at me, for sure. I still look fat and sloppy. I'm just a stronger version of fat and sloppy. So
I need to get there so I can put the flight suit on for that first flight. I'm going to squeeze back into it.
Dude.
I might have to leave it unzipped, but I'm going to squeeze back into it.
I think maybe because we went to the Honor Cafe yesterday, I was kind of thinking a little bit about my old uniforms, and every now and then you see an old Marine who tries to squeeze into his dress blues.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, I mean, I'm like, compared to like the size that I was when I wore my dress blues the last time, I am 75 pounds heavier than I was then. I wouldn't even be able to get my arms into the sleeves, like, to even attempt to try to close that thing up. But I was thinking about that yesterday.
Yep.
Okay, buddy. Well, it's been a fun one.
Yeah.
I think you've got a trip coming up. We'll figure out when we record the next one. We'll both try to build airplanes and see how much weight we can or cannot add to it. So
there you go.
Thank you all for being here. If you don't know already, Tim's YouTube channel is at tflight.77 or at tflight77. Mine is That Hippie Pilot. And we make videos about building airplanes, and we make a podcast talking about it. So thanks for being here. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. Shots.